So what was it that brought you back to wrestling after all these years? Was it what they thought they could offer in terms of the television product, or was it something you wanted to fulfill after stepping away?
Well, the executive producer of Ring Warriors was someone that I had worked with, in fact, back with the AWF. I worked with him when I did the Bryant Gumbel Celebrity Golf Tournament for ESPN from Walt Disney World a number of years ago. He was a good friend. We'd always stayed in touch. And kind of out of the clear blue, early in the summer, he called and told me he was going to be producing Ring Warriors. And, I remembered it a little bit from Howard Brody and Mr. Matsudo, Hiro Matsudo, who I'd met when I was over in Tokyo, had a legacy. And then we were talking about it, and he kind of told me that they're going to do it a little bit more the old school vein. They want to have, backstage interviews, which is, a good chance for the wrestlers and who's ever doing the interviews to try and get those characters established. And he said, and we want you to do it. So it was an easy decision to get a chance to work with a friend and to get involved and do, wrestling again on television. And then I had the chance and talked a little bit more with Howard Brody, who was involved. And they made it pretty clear that they were kind of excited to have me, with the experience to try and help get over and get established some of the younger wrestlers who really hadn't been on television much, who hadn't done interviews. And at the same time, they were going to have some veterans involved, which also appealed to me. And when I got out there, as I mentioned, and I really never thought much about it. It's almost, you kind of can't see the forest when you're in the trees. That in talking to some of the veterans that were out there and guys that I had worked with, they remarked that how excited they were because it was really the first chance, that after having been in wrestling for, some over a decade, their first chance to be on national television. And as I talked to them and that realization kind of came forward, I thought to myself, in professional wrestling, how lucky have I been in that, I never worked in the small territories or had the, 7-10 hour car rides. My first inroad in wrestling was the AWA, where we were, flying and going to Chicago and Winnipeg and Milwaukee and Denver and Salt Lake and Las Vegas. And I have never really taken that for granted, but really hadn't thought that much about it until talking with a lot of those guys. And then also just the enthusiasm of some of the younger wrestlers knowing that this is their chance. They're going to be on national television and to kind of help not only build a brand of Ring Warriors, but try and help build the brand of some of these young and up-and-coming stars, as well as being part of debuts on national television of guys that have worked and honed their craft for decades or more. Just kind of brought the excitement of wrestling, back to me again.
Now, that's really cool. And what it's done, too, is it's brought another classic name back from that bygone era. And obviously, it's been Sean Mooney and Tony Schiavone returning to professional wrestling television. Now, I think one question would be, for sure, is how much has the business changed from when you stepped away and left? Obviously, it's been a long time, but what do you think about the differences in when you left versus coming back in?
Well, remember when I started, and you guys will certainly know this term, it was the kayfabe era. where the insides of the business was so protected, and now, of course, it's out there that as sports entertainment. But one thing that hasn't really changed, and I got a chance to talk to a lot of the wrestling fans when I was out in Vegas for the first Ring Warriors taping. In fact, I'm going back again Monday. We'll be taping at Sam's Town this Wednesday and Thursday. Is wrestling fans, and I've used this analogy before, it's almost like, Chad, when you or John go to a movie, say you go to a Star Wars film or a Jurassic Park or a James Bond, going into the theater that it's fiction. But when you're watching the movie, you just want to become engrossed and believe in the film you're watching, for the time you're in the theater. And I think wrestling fans today, while they're either watching on television or at matches in person, still want to, believe in the characters and believe in what they're seeing. So from that standpoint, while the presentation, I think, has certainly changed, certainly in the sports entertainment era, the core of wrestling, I really don't think has changed that much. I mean, it's great when guys are good talkers and can put forth their character, but it doesn't matter how good a talker you are if you can't wrestle and work and perform in the ring. Your staying power is not going to be very long.